Good evening, everybody. I know people are still coming in, joining in, but just wanted to welcome everyone. And hello. So I want to announce that this event is being recorded. Thank you so much for joining us for the second event of the SDSU Sociology Community Dialogue Series on Black Lives Matter movement. My name is Min-Jung Kim, chair of the Sociology Department at San Diego State University. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the main organizer of this dialogue series and the moderator this evening. This event is organized by the Sociology Department and the Center for Community Research and Engagement at San Diego State University. First, I want to thank the CCRE Director, Jill Espenshade, and our awesome graduate assistant, Deanna Ratzme. I also want to acknowledge our past panelists, Ms. Tasha Williamson and Dr. Darwin Fishman, for their ideas for this event. And of course, I want to thank today's panelists and all of you who came today for making this event possible. Before we begin, let me open with land acknowledgement. We stand upon a land that carries the footsteps of millennia of Kumeyaay people. They are a people whose traditional life ways intertwine with the worldview of earth and sky in a community of living beings. This land is a part of a relationship that has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced the Kumeyaay people to the present day. It is part of a worldview founded in the harmony of the cycles of the sky and balance in the forces of life. For the Kumeyaay, red and black represent the balance of those forces that provide for harmony within our bodies as well as the world around us. As students, faculty, staff, and alumni of San Diego State University, we acknowledge this legacy from the Kumeyaay. We promote this balance in life as we pursue our goals of knowledge and understanding. We find the inspiration in the Kumeyaay spirit to open our minds and hearts. In the spirit of acknowledgement, before we begin our proceedings, I would like us to have a moment of silence for Daunte Wright, who was killed by a Minneapolis police officer this past Sunday, and countless victims of police brutality and racist violence, including George Floyd. Last year, when we were going through the COVID-19 pandemic, our country had to confront many forms of racial injustice and saw the nationwide protest reignited, denouncing racism and calling for racial justice. During that time, institutions for higher education like San Diego State University also had to deal with our own issues of racial diversity and how we can better serve our minoritized students. At that juncture, the Sociology Department came to take part in this national action by organizing events around the Black Lives Matter movement, especially by bringing in not just scholars, but also community activists to critical conversations. So we had the first event last year in October with 2 community activists and 1 activist scholar. From the beginning, we did not want to have one-time event because we believe that it was important to sustain critical conversations on various aspects related to racial injustice that Black Lives Matter movement calls out. So we named our plan as the Sociology Community Dialogue Series. So at the first meeting in October, we had 3 key San Diegan activists to discuss Black Lives Matter movement in San Diego. For our second event, that is today's event, we selected a theme of intersectionality with regard to Black Lives Matter movement and invited 4 panelists. What we see in the media is not the whole story. I really hope that we can bring our full attention and learn from today's panelists who have wealth of experience and insight. So before I introduce our first panelist, I wanna let attendees know that this event is in the Zoom webinar event format. So we have a chat open, but also we have a Q&A window. So please use Q&A for any questions that you have for our panelists. And you can use the chat for feedback or comments. If you post your questions on chat, we may miss it. We have someone who is actually monitoring it, but it would be very helpful if you could leave your questions in Q&A window. I hope that you are able to find it. So I'm very excited to introduce our first panelist, Christina Griffin-Jones. Christina is a member of a Black Lives Matter San Diego chapter and is one of the founders of March for Black Women San Diego, Dee Dee McClure Memorial Community Bell Fund, and We Got San Diego. Christina has lived on stolen and occupied the Kumeyaay land that colonizers later named San Diego County for all of her life. Her presentation today is about #SayHerName. Christina.
Thank you so much. Before I start my presentation, I want to thank so much Tasha Williamson for nominating me to be a part of this awesome event. So what I'm going to talk about in the time that I have with you all is about how #SayHerName, #MeToo, and intersectionality have really changed the way that I see myself as a Black woman in this fight against white supremacy and this fight against racism, specifically anti-Black racism in our world. If I could highlight some folks who've been really integral and important to me, helping me find my place in this movement, I would have to definitely honor one of my best friends, Nyesha Green Washington. So for folks who don't know, right, #SayHerName is a hashtag, a movement, excuse me, that was born out of the African American Policy Forum and the Center for Intersectionality and Social Policy Studies. That hashtag is to remember the lives of Black women and femmes whose lives have been cut short by state-sanctioned violence. Intersectionality was created by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw to be able to describe the compounded place of, to be able to describe the type of discrimination that Black women and femmes experience. And #MeToo was created by Tarana Burke, and its creation was used to be able to describe the trauma and abuse that Black women and femmes experience as well. I didn't know that these things existed when I was young, a Black woman in this world, trying to figure out why my oppression felt like oppression, but there were no words or anything like that, or marches happening to lift me up or to lift up my experience. A little bit about me, right? Uh, the way that I started community organizing was because of an experience of discrimination I had in my workplace. So in 2009, I had graduated from Howard University and I had returned back home to San Diego because I was too poor to live in DC if I didn't have a job. So I came back home here in San Diego and I looked for work. At first, I used to put my college degree on my resume. And when managers would ask me, Christina, in 5 years, where do you see yourself? I would answer honestly. I would say that I envision growing with the company. I would say that I envision growing in leadership and hopefully making more money. See, in San Diego, answers like that don't get you a call back on a job interview. So I quickly learned after being coached by other Black women in my life that if I wanted to get a call back for a job in San Diego as a Black woman, I needed to do a few things. One, I needed to try to make myself as small as possible. And what does that mean, right? That means no big curly hair. See, before I had this shortcut that you see me rocking today, my favorite hairstyle was a kind of hair that was called, it was just like super curly. No, it was called Wet and Wild. Yes, the hair was called Wet and Wild, and it was color 1B. Yes, it was a weave. I loved it. It is me. It is still me. So I was told, one, make yourself small. So no big curly hair and no natural hair on job interviews. Make sure your hair is flat ironed. Two, take off your college diploma. If white managers and white men managers see on your resume that you have a college degree, they'll feel threatened and you won't get a call back. And then three, when they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You say, I see myself in this exact same position, doing the exact same thing, working for you only. Now, I would be lying to you if I said the first 20 interviews I had to answer like this. If it was hard, it was terrible. So I would often do either one of the three things or two of the three things, and then I would report back to the Black women in my life who were just trying to help me survive a world that I wasn't quite sure of yet. And they would be like, okay, see, you did 2 out of 3. So I attended one of my last interviews, hair flat ironed, very modest clothing. I did not put that I had my college degree on my resume, and in the application. And when I got the question from the manager about where I saw myself in 5 years, I answered correctly, and I got a call back. I was the best worker at that place, and the name of the place is called Hyatt Regency Mission Bay Spa and Marina. See, like that's an important part of talking about when you've been harmed by places, right? That we name the thing a thing. So hardest worker there. I was super lucky. It's a union job, so I had health insurance as an adult for the first time. See, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so if I don't have insulin, I die. And insulin is one of the most expensive liquids on the planet. So going to work every day, showing up on time, I I had money in my pocket. So I spent it on things that made me happy, right? My hair. Oh, you all, my hair was beautiful. Um, I had really, really big curly hair with beautiful bangs, uh, gorgeous long hair to the middle of my back, beautiful bobs that were copied after the likes of Rihanna, Mary J. Blige, Nicki Minaj. I was, as they say, a baddie. And I was making my own money. And so I would ask the managers and the directors of the hotel, see, how did you get to where you were? Because this hospitality thing, easy. I love talking to people. I love solving folks' issues. They said, all you need, Christina, is your bachelor's degree and to become a front desk a front desk person. So at the time, I was a phone operator, and I got a lot of weird compliments like, wow, Christina, when guests would meet me face to face, wow, you didn't sound Black on the phone. Or, wow, Christina, you can talk in slang and then you can talk professionally. That's really impressive. Or my favorite, and by my favorite, I mean opposite day, my least favorite, Christina, you speak so well. So at this point, I had put in my heart, look, I have my bachelor's degree. I've been hiding it from these fools the whole time so I could keep this little job. But I'm going to put that I have my bachelor's. I'm going to get that front desk job, become a front desk manager, become a rooms executive, and then become a general manager and be able to hire a Black staff to be able to just make people's vacations the best ever. I didn't know that the general manager at the time, a person named Mohsen Khaligi, was hell-bent on making sure that someone like me, and by someone like me, I mean a Black woman, would not succeed at his hotel. So like I told you all, right? I'm kicking butt, I'm coming in, I'm clocking in, I'm working, I'm killing it. Everyone telling me, oh, Christina, you'll get that front desk position, no problem. So Mohsen is like the last person I have to talk to. Mohsen tells me not only will he never promote me, but that I should stop talking to the people I talk to and I should separate myself from them because they were teaching me how to be more ghetto and that my inconsistencies and hairstyles made me untrustworthy. So like, what do I do with that? I was a young person. I did not have access to things like knowing what intersectionality was, say her name was, right? Me too. All I had was my union, and my union fought for me and lit, and he was fired and transferred to the La Jolla Hyatt. That sparked something in me to become an organizer. I was lucky enough, right, to find deep friendships with folks like Naisha Green Washington, the creator of Black Lives Matter San Diego. And she taught me about the importance of hashtags like say her name and important things like intersectionality. See, when you see say her name, it's supposed to be used for Black women and femmes, especially Black trans women only. And it's supposed to be used for them after they have passed away. This is because our stories as Black women in this world are not only forgotten, they are erased. And the same happens with our murders. The same thing happens with our arrest rates. The same thing happens with the struggles like mine, that this may be for you who are non-Black women or femmes, the first time you're hearing the story of this. But I promise you that I am not the only Black woman who's ever survived something so terrible like that. And it is other Black women and femmes who are surviving this terror in their communities, in jails and prisons, in their homes, in their schools, in their workplace, and the list goes on. So my offering for you today, friends, is do not forget Black women's struggles, the struggles of Black femmes, the struggle of Black non-binary folks. make sure that that is lifted up, and also understanding that you can lift our stories up and remember our names. And that is an act of fighting against racism, especially anti-Black racism and patriarchy, as well as white supremacy that seeks to destroy us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, for starting off this event with your very personal story. Before I introduce our next presenter, I want to mention that our Q&A session will be after all presentations. But if you leave your questions on Q&A, we will make sure to address all of them during Q&A. If somebody needs a closed caption live transcript, but you're not sure how to do it, you can contact me, or through chat. You can direct message me to me or Jessica Baham, who is helping us in terms of technical issues. So our second panelist is Dr. Sharon Ellis. Dr. Ellis is a professor of sociology at CSU San Marcos, where she conducts research and teaches on critical race and gender issues. She also serves as an associate vice president of racial and social justice for the California Faculty Association, the union representing 29,000 faculty in the CSU system. She's also a poet who brings her sociological insight to poetry and poetics to sociology. Her recent poetry publications are in the San Diego Poetry Annual and Border Voices. Today's presentation is titled Black Feminist Roots of #BLM, an Enduring Vision and Radical Practice. Dr. Ellis.
Thank you. So actually it's Sharon Elise, so slightly different pronunciation, but thank you so much. I'm going to try to scoot quickly over some of my notes because I'm concerned that I've tried to stick a lot of things into a small amount of time. But I really want to talk about Black feminism because it is from Black feminism that we get this concept of intersectionality, which is so important for our organizing. So what's in a name? My friend Cecil Canton, who is the founding leader of the Council for Affirmative Action for CFA, says if you can't name it, you can't tame it. So being able to name our oppression is key to communicating how we experience, analyze, and move against it. And I want to just trace very briefly how Black women over time have articulated an analysis of our oppression and a vision of liberation that has become by now very nuanced, as what Bell Hooks calls a view from the margins that really gives us a very holistic understanding of the deeply oppressive structure of society that we live in, and of the multiple oppressions that we encounter. So when we look back at the history of Sojourner Truth, who quite likely you have heard about in your studies, and her speech, Ain't I a Woman? This is about contesting white constructions of womanhood that always painted us as somehow lacking, as deficient, because we weren't that ideal. And so Sojourner Truth talks about how, according to that ideal, women needed to be helped into carriages, lifted over ditches, and yet this had never happened to her. She said, ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I've plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? So really talking boldly about her strength, but insisting upon her womanhood and the fact that slavery had made use of her womanhood. She had had to bear all these children and watch them all sold off into slavery, and had not been that helpless helpmate that the white woman had been painted to be. Similarly, in the 19th century, we have the sociologist Anna Julia Cooper contesting male definitions of Blackness, saying only the Black woman can say when and where I enter in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood, without violence, without suing or special patronage. Then and there, the whole Negro race enters with me. And so what she's really talking about is how important it is that we understand the Black woman's experience. It is central to who we are as a people. And then it is not until we see Frances Beale, Secretary of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the Civil Rights Movement, that we get another clear articulation of race and gender as a double jeopardy that Black women endure. And she said this literally, double jeopardy, and that white women's politics didn't address Black women's experience. She refers to class realities and the middle class bias of white feminism, that Black women would love to be home with their feet up, as white women were articulating a vision of feminism that was equated to them escaping the home. So what we have with the development of Black feminism is really, like the t-shirt says, unapologetically Black, insisting on Blackness, insisting on womanness, but also eschewing respectability politics and a middle class bias. And so that class aspect is very important, because if we look at it, some of those are the pitfalls that we've seen in terms of Black organizing in the United States, the politics of respectability, if you will, a bourgeois politics that ignores the realities of working class and poor Black Americans. So the Combahee River Collective comes along in the late 70s. And here we have a very clear articulation by Black lesbian feminists who say we are actively committed to struggling against racial, sexual, heterosexual, and class oppression, and see as our task the development of integrated analysis and practice based on the fact these major systems of oppression are interlocking. So even though you don't have an exact articulation of intersectionality, this notion of interlocking oppression is what then is going to lead to the notion of intersectionality. Combahee River Collective go on to say, as Black women, we see Black feminism as the logical political movement to combat the manifold and simultaneously oppressions that all women of color face. And they go on to affirm their origins in the historical reality of Black women's continuous life and death struggle for survival and liberation, arguing that Black women's extremely negative relationship to the American political system, a system of white male rule, has always been determined by our membership in two oppressed racial and sexual castes. Black women have always embodied an adversarial stance to white male rule and resisted its inroads upon them and their communities. Black women activists like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frances Harper, Ida B. Wells, Barnett, and Mary Church Terrell, among thousands of unknown activists, have a shared awareness of how their sexual identity combined with their racial identity to make their whole life situation and the focus of their political struggles unique. So contemporary Black feminism, they see as an outgrowth of countless generations of sacrifice, militancy, and work by our mothers and sisters. So there's this sense of this intergenerational strand that contributes to a Black feminist consciousness. I'm wearing, in honor of Barbara Smith, my Kitchen Table Press t-shirt. Barbara Smith is a Black lesbian feminist who established Kitchen Table Press, publishing radical women of color in the 80s. And she is one of the Combahee River Collective who continues to argue for a radical Black feminist perspective. And you can find her work. She wrote the book entitled But Some of Us Are Brave. The entire title is All the Women Are White, All the Blacks Are Men, but Some of Us Are Brave. And so we see so many women come out of this mode, Audre Lorde, Barbara Smith, Deborah King, really arguing for this multiplicity of oppression, leading on to more recent people like Bell Hooks, Patricia Hill Collins, who wrote on Black feminist thought. With the development of neoliberalism and the turn to developing as a carceral state with mass incarcerations of Black and Brown people, we see Black feminist activists such as Angela Davis and Ruthie Gilmore establishing with others groups Critical Resistance, which were avowedly abolitionist groups to defund the police and to end prisons. Kimberly Crenshaw, of course, comes along with critical race theory and intersectionality, her African American Policy Forum, and Say Her Name campaign. All of these feed into what is happening with the Black Lives Matter organizations and movement. Obviously, the leadership of the movement is Black, feminist, and often queer, and it is lifting up and really condemning heteropatriarchy and lifting up Black LGBTQ plus IA folks is very central to the politics of Black Lives Matter, affirming Black humanity and resilience, and really making interventions in a world where Black lives are too often targeted for destruction by state violence, and as we've seen, also by vigilante violence. And so in the movement for Black lives, we see an impact across our nation and into my faculty union. We have worked with Black Lives Matter to propose both the AB 1460, which resulted in an ethnic studies requirement for all students in the CSU, and also demands to address anti-Black racism throughout the CSU. And our demands to address anti-Black racism, and very much in league with the intersectional approach in Black Lives Matter movement politics. We first uphold Black lives and recognize their value, the right to protest anti-Black racism without retaliation, the need to lift up and protect Black LGBTQIA folks, the need to resource Black student centers and Black studies, to defund police and remove militarized policing from campus. In fact, to reimagine safety without police, to hire Black faculty and counselors, support and value Black scholarship and creative activity, to relieve Black faculty of cultural taxation, which is primarily done by women, and to have free tuition for Black and Native students, programs for system impacted students, racial representation among leadership, and racial pay equity, and to repeal 209 so that we can have race conscious programs. So again, this vision that we have to address the multiplicity of oppressions through an intersectional analysis is very connected to the kind of coalitional politics that we see, and the need to, as some people would say, connect for our co-liberation, while also understanding the very specific nature of anti-Black racism and the need to address the entire Black community, but really lifting from among the poorest, the system impacted because of our carceral state, and always to address the issues that Black women have brought to the fore. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so sorry about mispronouncing your last name. I have to.
That's quite all right.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, it's Elise,
Elise.
Sharon Elise.
Okay, thank you so much.
But don't worry, it's fine.
Okay, so next presenter, our third presenter, I think Dr. Elise, her presentation really laid out a foundation for our next presenter, I believe. Our third panelist is Paige Ko. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Paige is the Community Relations Chair for the San Diego Black LGBTQ Coalition. Their role involves direct training to assure that community partners have tools to create safer spaces for the Black LGBTQ+ community. Paige is also a training specialist for the Gender Fluid Collective, GPC, and sits on the Black LGBTQ+ Community Advisory Committee at the San Diego LGBT Center. They continue to work to utilize their position and lens to advocate for the removal of barriers, keeping darker Black folks and other LGBTQ+ community members out of decision-making roles in spaces that serve them. And today they will discuss Black Trans Lives Matter, identity and advocacy. Paige.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Okay, perfect. So yeah, my name is Paige Ko. I use they, them pronouns. I'm going to kind of scoot on here. At the coalition, our mission is to build a united front of diverse Black LGBTQ community members for social, political, and economic advancement by forming a central hub for San Diego Black LGBTQ life. We already did a land acknowledgement, so I won't spend too much time on that because I also am worried I kind of crammed too much in here. But I also wanted to note that land acknowledgements are really important to do, but they're not reparations. I do support land back movements that aim to return land to Indigenous folks. I have some Instagram accounts down here that I wanted to uplift. However, I do have them at the end as well. So I want to just really quickly move through some basic definitions just so we're all on the same page. So cisgender would be someone who has an internal sense of self that falls in line with their sex assigned at birth. Some terms to avoid in organizing spaces and elsewhere would be normal or not trans. Having language for both identities really helps normalize trans folks. Transgender is an umbrella term for many identities where the internal sense of self does not fall in line with the sex assigned at birth. So this could be a trans woman, trans man, or a non-binary person. Some terms to avoid would be transgendered. It makes it sound like something's happening to you. Transsexual is derogatory to a lot of folks. So like any other language, just make sure that you're using language that's comfortable for that person, but I wouldn't approach someone with that word. And then the last phrase there is just blatantly derogatory, but a lot of folks don't know that, so I did want to include that as well. We're going to briefly go over transitioning. So a social transition would be a social and legal process that one might go through to affirm their gender identity. So this might include getting a binder, which would compress chest tissue, changing your name and gender marker on your birth certificate, telling friends and family. Medical transition would be gender affirming care that one might go through to affirm their gender identity. So that could be top surgery or bottom surgery among a lot of other medical intervention procedures. So some things to avoid is really asking someone when they're going to have surgery or if they had surgery, because all trans experiences are valid and not everyone will do the same thing. So some folks might not want to change their name. Some folks don't want surgery. That's all completely valid. Also, don't use phrases like when she was a boy or dead name or someone, which is using their former name or former pronouns. You really shouldn't, there shouldn't be too many situations where you are talking about someone's transition. You definitely don't want to out folks, which is disclosing their identity without their permission. However, if you are talking about it in a relevant way, you could say something along the lines of like, she struggled with her mental health during her transition because of workplace discrimination. So you don't have to, for sure, use former pronouns. So what is race? I love Erica Hart. That Instagram's also at the end, but race is based upon how you look, not how your parents look, where you grew up, how you were socialized, your religion. It is phenotype. So white supremacy is not creative. And if you don't like that, put your energy into ending white supremacy. I am Black multiracial, which is relevant right now because of light skin privilege and colorism. So, so yeah, sorry, I lost my place a little. Basically, all light-skinned folks benefit from colorism. Dark-skinned folks don't benefit from colorism and cannot be colorist, just like, Black folks can't be racist because power is needed. Light-skinned folks are more likely to be hired, less likely to go to jail, and more likely to be empathized with. And also, in a lot of situations, are chosen to play folks who were real and darker skin, and sometimes their skin is darkened. So that's definitely super problematic. This is an article I really like about colorism. And then we already talked about intersectionality, so I won't go too far into that. I just like this visualization that helps you see that it is really exponential the more marginalized identities you do have. Which brings us to Black Trans Lives Matter. So Black Trans Lives Matter came out of the Black Lives Matter movement with the understanding that Black trans bodies face anti-Black and trans hostile violence at large. So this is coming from police, but also from community members who are then shielded and protected by police and the legal system. The likelihood of this violence increases exponentially for darker Black folks, trans women and femmes, and for folks with disabilities. Black Trans Lives Matter asks folks to examine how anti-Black racism and trans hostility show up in their lives and to commit to the lifelong process of kinship. So anti-racist, anti-trans hostile, and anti-ableist lenses. So really quickly with pronouns, we're going to speed through. So traditionally feminine pronouns in English would be she, her, hers. Traditionally masculine would be he, him, his. Gender neutral could be they, them, theirs, or ze, zer, zers. You can actually Google practicing pronouns and websites can help you out. Spanish, I don't speak Spanish, but my partner gave me this information and I thought it was really important to include. So traditionally feminine would be ella and ending things with an a, so bonita. Traditionally masculine, el or bonito. And gender neutral, one way to do that would be ella and ending things with an e, so bonite. And I would really recommend just introducing yourself with your pronouns while you're organizing. So hi, my name's Paige. I use they, them pronouns. And if you misgender someone, just use the correct pronoun and move on. If you spend too much time on it, it makes the person feel like they have to say, oh no, that's okay. So use gender neutral language until you can exchange pronouns at events as well. And if folks choose to disclose that they're trans, keep in mind they may not be out in all spaces. And then continue cultural humility because you're not going to be an expert on trans folks after definitely not this short, little talk, but even after presentation, because culture changes and if it's not yours, you can't be. Center the community. So definitely keep asking yourself questions like who is organizing, who made decisions about how to and if to interact with the police. And then definitely decisions about property as well. That's a split train of thought. Some folks think that if property is going to be damaged, white cis folks should be doing it because they're less at risk. And other folks think that, if police were to engage because of that, it would be the Black trans bodies, the Black cis women as well, who then would be targeted. And then shield marginalized folks. Advocacy and kinship. So continue to show up and avoid one-time and minimal performative actions. Continue to start or redistribute power and resources. So direct monetary donations, advocating for darker Black trans folks to be placed in decision-making roles in spaces you occupy, and addressing, not ignoring barriers and discrimination, preventing these actions. And then also acknowledge, don't ignore your own anti-Blackness and trans hostility. So, what anti-Black and trans hostile messages have you received through time? And then what do you do to kind of unlearn what ideas you've ingrained about who's worthy or deserving? Some barriers to decision-making roles, unemployment impacts job history. So trans and gender nonconforming Black and Indigenous folks experience unemployment at 2 to 3 times the US unemployment rate at the time of the survey, which was 2015, but still accurate. Discrimination reduces promotional opportunities. So 30% of respondents who had a job in the past year reported being fired, denied a promotion, or experiencing some other form of discrimination in the workplace. And then discrimination and economic barriers. So nearly 1/4 of respondents who indicated that classmates, professors, or staff at college or vocational school thought or knew they were trans were verbally, physically, or sexually harassed. And then this increased for Black, Indigenous, and Middle Eastern folks. And then nearly 1/3 to 29% of respondents were living in poverty. So this could be economic barriers that would impact your involvement in higher education. And then that relates to employment. I do directly face these barriers because I will have my first associate's degree in the summer. So I currently do not have a degree. So some criticisms of traditional nonprofit and other organizing structures. So the placement of people who do not represent the community being served in the majority of leadership roles, so saviors. Minimizing roles for people who do represent the community to peer support or similar positions while leaving decision-making power to people who experience less racial, economic, and educational barriers. Placing a high value on education and a low value on personal experience. Both are important. However, when you see organizations hiring, cis, white, straight folks for leadership roles at, centers that are supposed to mainly help Black, queer folks, that's an issue. Utilizing the advice of communities served while not employing or supporting the work of those individuals in their own communities. And then not centering Black women, but also trans folks, low-income folks who aren't formally educated limits social change. So yeah, I'm talking about just folks who are more marginalized, also folks who are impacted by the prison industrial complex, because there's a disconnect of experience that causes the needs to be overlooked. Specific to hiring, then the majority of wealth is being directed to those who already face less barriers. It reinforces the false idea that communities are unable to help themselves and creates a divide where organizations, centers, and actions do not feel like they belong to or are safe for everyone. It supports anti-Black and trans hostile views that only some folks are worthy of a voice, if formally educated, easier for white people to feel comfortable around, etc. And that is it. Thank you so much. Here are those Instagram accounts, but I think that was my time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone today for keeping their time. Thank you for your cooperation. Our last but not least, our panelist is Buki Domingos. Buki Domingos is a versatile singer, songwriter, instrumentalist, nurse, as well as an activist and motivational speaker with over 2 decades of stage experience. Buki is the founder of the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, multi-ethnic and multi-generational racial justice coalition that spearheaded the 3-year I Can't Breathe campaign, which led to the ban of all neck restraints in San Diego under the leadership of Dr. Darwin Fishman. She's a member of the World March of Women, board member of Survivor Leader Network of San Diego, and board member of the International Rescue Committee. I just want to say that Buki's full bio includes wonderful experiences she has had in her music career, as well as her activism work. She was the 2019 KPBS and NCRC winner of the Community Heroes Award for her work to raise awareness around human trafficking. And she was named one of 2020 Phenomenal San Diego Women in Advocacy and Empowerment by the San Diego Union Tribune. Today, her presentation is titled Multi-Generational, Multi-Ethnic Coalition in the Black Lives Matter Movement. Buki.
Hi, Dr. Kim, and thank you for providing the space for me to share with you today. I would just like to talk about multi-generational, multi-ethnic coalition in the Black Lives Matter movement. because I use intentionally the word multi-ethnic, because from my understanding, there is only one race, and that is the human race. Using the word multiracial is for me another part of the colonial mindset. And I have intentionally, especially within the last decade, worked really hard to decolonize my mind and decolonize my thinking in order to work best with Black and Brown people, and especially Black people in the Black Lives Matter movement. So I am a member of the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, and my main focus for this presentation today is focus like a laser on criminal justice. Because as we have all found out, latest in the summer of 2020, the most suffering and the most marginalized remain the Black lives in the US. And I say that intentionally because I'm originally Nigerian and I have lived in 3 different continents, and I've seen the criminal justice system in Nigeria go haywire. I have seen police use their knees on people's necks on the streets. I have seen police brutalize and kill people with no reason at all. So I'm very familiar. At the age of 12, I experienced my first violent riot and protest on the streets of Benin City, and also was tear gassed as a child. So I'm fully much aware of how we can have civil unrest and the unjust behavior of the police. However, as a Nigerian, I hold the police in an advanced country like the US to a much higher standard. My organizing in the US actually started because of my experience in the hands of a US Marine. I was trafficked here 8 years ago, and while I was trafficked, I bore a son, which is the 4th of my 4 Black men. I would like to share with you the work that the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego has been doing, starting off with the I Can't Breathe campaign that we wrapped up in 3 years, which was pretty much the main goal for the I Can't Breathe campaign was to talk about the carotid ban and why neck restraints were very, very deadly, especially for Black folks. And we noticed that in San Diego, this was being used also in that the police department was actually justifying the use of neck restraints and trying to make us understand why it was crucial for them to use the neck restraints. Gratefully, the killing of George Floyd led to an uprising, and this energy was utilized by the RJCSD to successfully ban the carotid restraint in San Diego County. And then we moved forward to work with Assemblymember Mike Gibson of Los Angeles to put in effect AB 1196, which bans all neck restraints in the state of California. Now, currently, I, with members from the RJCSD, are also working on a new project, which is also another policy change, which has to do with the prosecutor resign. We're currently working, and this one is a much more ambitious campaign, because now we're not just focusing on people that may have been brutalized by police or have been killed by police. We're actually focusing on the life after. So the family members that have lost family members to police brutality, be it by neck restraints, be it by gun wounds, or just being executed out on the streets, be it in San Diego or North County, these family members are still seeking justice up till today. We work with several family members. Our new campaign is called Prosecute or Resign, and we are working on this campaign with several family members. And one of the family members, for example, is the Dennis Carolino family. He was killed a couple of years ago. He was having a mental breakdown. And this is actually common for the police department and the sheriff's department to typically murder somebody who was unarmed and try to rationalize and justify why this person was actually murdered. And typically it was one, because they were resisting, or two, because they felt that the person was a threat. And for people like Jonathan Coronel, he pretty much had no shirt on him. So it was clear that this man was not armed. It was clear that he had his back turned to the officer. So this is our main goal, to hold elected officials, for example, like the district attorney of San Diego, accountable for these lives lost, because they're in a position of power to actually prosecute these officers. And we intentionally call that campaign Prosecutor Resign, because it is targeted specifically to provide justice for family members who do have the courage, because each time these people come out and speak is definitely really difficult for them. But they make it a duty to continue to elevate the lives of their family members, and also to explain why they will not rest until they get justice for their family members. Now, the term multi-generational, the RJCSD, we pride ourselves, we have our members from one of the original founders of the Black Lives Matter, of the Black Panther Party. He is almost in his 70s. He's one of our members, and our youngest member is in her early 20s. Now, the intention of doing multi-generational organizing is to ensure that this work lives on. So we have seen great movement people and great movements just fizzle out just because probably the founder passed away or somebody was assassinated. Our intention with RJCSD is to ensure that this work, that we pass the baton to the next generation and to the next generation, because we know that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, and that it's going to be very, very difficult to undo hundreds of years of oppression, of colonization, of just straight up treating Black people like they were actually not human. And we see this in different spaces. And like other people have said, we also see a lot of anti-Blackness. It is actually a thing in certain spaces where even people of color, also there's another layer of oppression that Black people have to face, and this is the anti-Blackness. And so these are things that we do speak about in Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, also known as RJCSD, and we do our best to elevate the lives of Black lives, have them in our leadership, have them in our council and everything that we do, and also speak to these spaces where we do have our people of color who are also anti-Black, and also educate our white allies as to what it really means to be an ally, which is pretty much to follow the lead of a Black person. I'm probably at time, but before I end, I would like us to take time out, just a minute of silence. And I wrote this down to make sure that I remember everybody I wanted to remember. So acknowledging in our moment of silence, I would like to acknowledge lives lost through police brutality, as our RJCSD work focuses on criminal justice reform and policy change. All survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, hate crime. And I would also like to add, as a Nigerian mother, I would also like to add all those immigrants who have died on the way to the United States of America in the search for safety. All our Haitians, all our Central American people, all our people from Central Africa, everybody from those at the convention center right now, those children at the convention center did not fall from the sky. They came from their trees. They came from their parents, yet they're there. And I applaud everybody in San Diego for doing the work to make sure that these children are safe. So I'd like us to take a minute of silence, and then I would close out with 2 minutes of rounding up of my talk. All right, I hope I was accurate with the minute. And so to summarize everything I have shared with you today, I've been talking about the importance of a multi-generational, multi-ethnic coalition in the Black Lives Matter movement that is actually led by Black folks. And when I say folks intentionally, everybody who identifies as Black in the Black Lives Matter movement. And we also know that Black doesn't necessarily mean brown skin. We have our North African folks who pass as white, but are actually African, therefore are Black as well. So to round up, I would like to thank everybody for giving me the time today to share with you just a little bit about myself, what RJCSD does regarding criminal justice reform in San Diego, and the little areas that we touch on. And I would like to close on this for people to ponder on. I am a great feminist at heart. I was raised by a very strong matriarch, and this matriarch was also married for 45 years, and that marriage ended when my father passed away 5 years ago. So I believe in a healthy balance between both worlds, because as a healthcare professional, the human body needs what we call homeostasis. There has to be a balance. I am not for one extreme or the other, because as a woman who has 4 men, I strongly believe that women must be elevated, but also that anybody who identifies as or man plays a great role in the life of the femme. Therefore, I would like to thank everyone, and I encourage everybody to think about and challenge themselves. How do we find a healthy balance? Because if something is an extreme, the scale of balance will be tipped over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, all panelists. I believe we are going to have now Q&A session, and now the view will be changed to gallery view. So if you could turn on your camera, I would really appreciate it. And when I ask you a question, you can turn on your mic and answer the question. So I'm going to start with Christina. We have a question that was asked during your presentation. If a white cis woman had answered the way you did, would the outcome be any different in regards to obtaining a job? And also, Christina, if you could talk a little bit about how you became involved in Black Lives Matter San Diego, I would really appreciate it.
Nice. I think if the white cis woman would have done all the same things I did, she would have been a general manager a lot faster than me. I worked with someone at my hotel, and I later cut her off on Facebook because she tried to challenge me. A white woman tried to challenge me about my experience of anti-Blackness at our company. She started off as a phone operator, same qualifications as me. I worked harder than she did and had more challenges than she did. And guess what? She got promoted to not only front desk, but became a front desk manager while I was fighting that general manager. So yeah, she would have been even more successful than me. And then the way I got involved in Black Lives Matter, it was through being involved in Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and in LA. And then when I came back home to San Diego, my friend Naisha had put together a group of really dope organizers and activists. I was very traumatized at the time. I was very tired. I was deep in burnout, and I was not helpful or just, I don't know. I just was, yeah, I just wasn't like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to, not saying I don't remember the person I was, but I can just only remember the pain, I felt. So my friend Naisha, we weren't friends at the time. she was from like the East Coast, but she had come to San Diego, and she introduced like, you know, like just hella like Black feminism theory and everything to me. But yeah, she's how I got started in Black Lives Matter San Diego. Like I started to attend like meetings, and then really didn't work out. And then Nye called me and said that this group called Black Women's Blueprint in Washington, DC was having a march for Black women. And she wanted to do that in San Diego. And she wanted to do it under Black Lives Matter San Diego. So I told her, I was like, oh, Nye, let's wait, let's check on everything. And Nye said, Christina, if you don't do it with me, I'm gonna do it without you. And I was like, no, okay, I'll do it. So yeah, that's how I got involved. Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, so we have a question for you. Through ethnic studies in high school curriculum, how can you work with the standards to ensure uplifting voices for an identity that you may not identify with?
Work with the I'm not sure I understand the question. What does it mean, work with the standards? Do you know? Does anybody know?
I think so maybe we can focus on the latter part about uplifting voices for an identity that you may not identify with.
Okay, I could do that part, because I think, you know, that of course there are things that you can do, as they say, to become the wise. And I think we've had some great presentations here to help people learn respectful ways to communicate with people from differing backgrounds and in differing experiences. I would say, I think that the literature is such a great way, that reading novels and autobiographies of people is so good for learning what it feels like to be inside the experience, and then doing the kind of work that you're doing here, Minjong. And now I'm afraid I'm saying your name incorrectly, but Minjong. Doing work like this panel is bringing in people who are engaged in the community, and bringing in people who are willing to share, you know, their experiences is such a great way to teach students about experiences they haven't, you know, brushed up against. Because the fact of the matter is that some of our students come from very segregated environments, and by which I mean really white spaces where they have not had any experience, and they're worried that they will open their mouth and commit offense, and often they will, because they don't know. And so best thing is, you know, I think through people's literature, certainly through music is great too. And the arts are just such a great way of looking at what is the meaning system for people inside a particular experience. I really like to use those things myself in classes. I think that's great. The question about standards threw me, because there's such a big argument right now about what should go into the high school, I should say the K-12 curriculum for ethnic studies, that I was like not wanting to back into that swamp, because it's, you know, a murky mess. I would just say what should be in ethnic studies, that's like a whole, you know, political conundrum.
Right. Well, related to that, I want to ask Paige. So there is a question: as a white cisgender woman, what is the best way to approach different preferences regarding terminology and definitions from people of color and the LGBTQIA+ community? I think it's kind of related to the previous question.
Yeah, I think everything that Sharon had said was really accurate. I also would add just following folks on Instagram and then continuing to sign up for trainings, because culture is fluid. And so, you know, the terminology even within the community changes a lot. So I have to stay aware of it too. So just continuing to attend trainings would be my best suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. For Buki, we have someone asking, how can we volunteer for Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego?
Well, you can just go to you can follow us on Instagram, Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, or you can go to our webpage. It's www.rjcsd.org. Then you can send us an email under rjcsd@mail. So it's not Gmail, it's @mail.com. And I'm sure that one of our wonderful organizers will reach out to you and just ask you how you would like to be contacted so you can get involved. And we have a lot to do, a lot of work to do, especially because of the new campaign. So we definitely need the young, the old, bring it all. We'll gladly accept as long as you are aligned with our mission and our vision that is on our webpage.
And also maybe Buki, you and I can talk about offering internship opportunities for our students.
Yeah, actually, we've had a few interns stop by. We've had interns now for almost a year and a half, and those 3 interns actually just became part-time organizers with us. So they finished their internship and they stayed on. So we're happy, and we're definitely, because we used to do handshake to invite folks to join. So yes, we are definitely welcoming interns.
Great. So anybody interested in getting college credits and through internship, you can contact me as well. And these questions, there are 2 questions that I want to ask together to all of you. Anyone who want to answer these questions, feel free. And the first one is, and that is, how do I uplift the PI voices that may be invisible under the given AAPI federal designation umbrella? And is it appropriate to apply #SayHerName to Asian, Desi American, or Latina women and femmes who are subjected to state-sponsored violence? Any thoughts on these?
So for I'd like to refer to the second one. I'm so sorry for the ignorance I'm expressing, and I hope I don't harm anybody. What does DESI mean?
So
in the chat, or I can Google it. My bad.
Do you want to answer that, Minjung?
I
can totally Google it, but if
yeah,
I can answer it, Christine.
Okay, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
I would just say, by way of saying why I can answer it, because we have a number of different caucuses that we work with in CFA, our faculty union.
Yes.
And these caucuses teach us exactly the kinds of things that we're being asked about. And so recently, the caucus that we used to call API, meaning Asian and Pacific Islander, had changed their name to APIDA so they could include Desi American. And this is because there are people from places such as India and Sri Lanka, Indonesia, who do not feel like they fit inside the category of Asian or Pacific Islander. And so it's a whole big region that was not included. And so it is included those people. It can also Pakistan, Bangladesh, and there's a certain point at which all of us who are so bad at geography have to pull out. I think I talked all through geography in high school, seriously. So I have to pull out the map.
Dr. Ellis, me
right?
too. I did as well. I had notes to pass.
But yeah, that's Desi. That's the Desi.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ellis. And I want to apologize too, because in the chat, I put oh yeah, Professor Ellis. So my apologies. I meant no disrespect. So if, so if you do you search #SayHerName say her name, it is just for Black women and femmes, specifically especially Black trans women who are no longer with us, passed away, gone. So you wouldn't use say her. So I was arrested this summer. So to like get me out of jail, right? You wouldn't say Christina Griffin Jones, say her name. I'm still alive, player. I'm still here, still alive. but no, it is not okay to use that hashtag for anyone except when you're referring to Black women or femmes, especially Black trans women. There was some tension this summer because a Latinx woman had been killed by police, and people were doing like the say her name chant. And of course, I'm still learning how to be able to express and be able to correct with grace and stuff. So I had some online conversations with folks about say her name and how they were using it incorrectly, and if they wanted to, be in solidarity with the fight against police violence, that they would honor that in spaces I'm in. Like March for Black Women San Diego and Black Lives Matter San Diego, we also use say her name to lift up Black women and femmes, especially Black trans women who've been killed by their partners or who have experienced horizontal violence. So there's a person named, Muna Curry, like say her name. She passed at the hands of her partner. So so we lift up Black women and femmes, especially Black trans women who are no longer here, and whose murders are erased, not because the murders were less horrendous or not because of anything, but just because they are both Black and are at the intersections of being women and femmes. Like people can talk all day about the names of Black men who've been killed by police, but no one, people don't know the names of the Black women. So no, it would not be appropriate to use say her name.
Okay.
I want to jump in really quickly. Thank you so much for that. I also, like, for specifically the portion that was talking about if the person was Latina, there are Black Latinx folks. So if it's a Black Latinx folk, then it would also be appropriate.
Yes, thank you, Paige.
So I don't know if anyone wants to address this question about PI under AAPI. Maybe it is a good time for me to announce that sociology graduate students actually organized an event about anti-Asian hate next Friday. So if you could actually bring up this question at that event, I think we can have fuller conversations about it. Sharon?
Yeah, actually, I did want to comment on that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I would just say, because, in our work, we're dealing with so many different identities, and kind of back to that other question of things you may not always know about yourself. But one of the things that we find generally is that so many of us have gotten erased, and it's part of what happens with these racial systems and racial narratives. We get put under, you get put into a box, and then there's all this stuff is put onto that box like it fits everybody in the box. And we're really trying to get specific about our oppression. We're learning, we have to get specific. We have to get specific about how we name it. And I love all this stuff with the language, because we're learning new language that is really speaking to this issue. And so it is absolutely true that the box Asian, which was used here and there's all this racial narrative and racism that goes with it, and assumptions about people that people think they could look at you and know what part of the world do you come from. And this is so problematic. And the experiences are quite different among the people within that box, whether you're doing Asian, or whether you say Asian Pacific Islander, whether you say Asian Pacific Islander and Desi American, is still very heterogeneous inside that box. It's so important to be specific. And so I will uphold the struggle for Pacific Islander people who have a very rich history in this area to really get specific about their experiences and their oppression and what it will take for their liberation, because it's going to be different. There will be some overlap, and that's where we can coalesce.
Yeah. Thank
Dr.
you so
Elliott,
much.
I love that, because talking about that box, right? It's like who built this box? Probably, like probably a white dude. Like,
A whole other series
Yes,
conversation
most
about who
definitely.
built the box and why.
Yeah. Buki, I missed what you were saying.
I'm sorry.
I missed
Repeat what you said, Buki.
Yeah.
Repeat what you
Oh,
said.
when Christina said, talking about who built the box and probably a white person, I said that's a whole different series that you would have to do
Yeah.
and get different, like make this panel like 2 times bigger to talk about who built the box and why that box was built and who is meant to stay in that box. Because it's all very intentional.
Mhm.
And how people like to say, oh, the system doesn't work, it's broken. No, the system is just fine. It works perfectly for the people that created the system. Hence, for the master's tools, can never dismantle the master's house.
There
You
you
better
go.
preach, Buki. Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next question. With the trainings in the workplace about racism and anti-Black trainings, how can we hold people in positions of power that the training or workshop is not just that, and we are protected to speak out when we see it?
You need to make
Any
sure you have a
thoughts?
union at your workplace. That, like, if you want to be protected during these like conversations, I mean, it is important that you do have a union at your workplace, because I know, like, I haven't experienced this at the place I'm working at now, but I was telling a friend yesterday, I think it's been 4 years, and I've had 6 different of these kind of racial equity trainings where me as a light-skinned Black person, I've grown really like, I know that there's things I can't and I won't say because I don't want that blowback. And that blowback has been less when I've been in a workplace where I've had a union. And also it's really important that even in workplaces where you don't have a union, you do have to think about how in danger you are of saying something. If you happen to, if at your workplace, y'all all are about to have a racial equity or diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and you know that you're the boss's favorite, and you know that you can do no wrong. And maybe you're white, maybe you're not white, maybe it's a predominantly Latinx environment, and you're also Latinx. I mean, it's some high level self-interrogation that you have to do, but you definitely have to think about how safe you are. I know for me, I have a lot of shame for times when I was in denial about my light skin privilege, and I didn't act up harder, not only my light skin privilege, but also not, because I'm a very lovable person. I regret, right, the time when I was the boss's favorite and I had light skin privilege, and I didn't act up at the max capacity that I could. Like I didn't like get up and rip the papers and start chanting the Asada chant on top of, on top of the conference room table. And yeah, it was because of fear. But if you're going to do a diversity, equity, inclusion training at your job, and you're worried and you want to call out somebody on the very tippity top, just think about how you are in proximity to that person. And, be careful about thinking that you're in a lot of danger. If you are somebody that's Black, though, at these offices during these diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, and you don't have a union and you are alone, yeah, I don't even have the words for it, because that's a scary place to be in, honestly. Mm-hmm.
And I would like to chime in and first of all, acknowledge and agree with what Christina just said. And I know that slave mentality and that colonial mindset in the US is intentional to intentionally not unionize all jobs, for that same fact that they want to be able to conquer and divide, which is classical. I was privileged to live in a country where everybody was unionized, or at least everybody had the option to join a union, regardless of if you were picking up the garbage or if you were a janitor. And it just makes the standard of life to where a janitor can have one job, still buy a home, and have a decent life without working 4 or 5 jobs. So that being said, I also know that there are lots of spaces, Black spaces, that, because we are focusing here on Black lives, which I think is also a great thing, because often we want to water it down and go, well, we're also brown people too, and these people too. No, we're intentionally today talking about Black lives because we're also focusing on Black lives. And I don't have to be apologetic about just talking about Black lives. I know that there are spaces where Black folks are elevated in San Diego. Christina is one of those spaces. RJCSD is one of those spaces, and other spaces that are not here or identified today. Before you want to go ahead and play superhero, it's also great to be organized while you're trying to play superhero, to reach out to these folks, even when you have been discriminated against, even when you have proof. It's great to reach out to these folks, for there is safety in numbers. And these people come with a wealth of knowledge that can push you through whatever you're going through. That would be the wisest strategy, especially when somebody is working a job and this is literally your only means of livelihood, and the person knows that they have been discriminated against. Reach out to those pillars in the community and talk about pillars in the community. There's also an organization called Pillars of the Community. You can reach out to them as well. And I'm sure that they will gladly take you under their wings so you don't feel like you're alone. Because the one thing that really gets us is somebody gets discriminated against, that person gets upset. And the biggest mistake, because the anger is justified, the biggest mistake is not attacking it with strategy, because that's where people fall short. And going to these organizations like Black Lives Matter, March for Black Women, Pillars of the Community, RJCSD, these are organizations that can point you in the right direction. Hey, we got an attorney for you. Hey, we got this for you. Hey, we got that for you. And all of a sudden, if people can just take a second and focus, all of a sudden they find that not only are they not alone, but they're all of a sudden talking to a lot of people who all this has happened to personally, and can share those experiences with them and how to move forward. So for me, that's one of the shortcuts of not having a union.
I just want to say, we have to remember unions have a horrible racist history in this society. And unless those unions say that they're avowedly anti-racist and that they're practicing social justice unionism, then, you know, they may be just as bad as the managers, frankly. You know, so I just say it kind of like get specific about it. It depends. It depends which union it is. It depends what is their history. Have they dealt with that stuff? Are they trying to get all of their members, their representation folks that would represent you in a grievance? Are they trained in anti-racism? Or are they going to enact a white supremacist, you know, thing on you? I said thing because I was about to cuss, but thing.
Dr. Ellis, maybe we should
But-
start dropping
I
some
think,
F-bombs.
right? But I think, you know, I think the big thing that we learned from Black Lives Matter movement is collective action has always been where it's at for us as Black people, is that we have to get together. And it doesn't mean that we win, because look where we're at, you know, and how long it's been. But we are resistant people, and I think we are very devoted to struggle because we do want to be free one day.
And like Dr. Ellis, I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what you said, right? Like collective struggle, you know, that definitely is of like, that is in like Black DNA, right? I think about how like, you know, like the struggle for organizing unions in this country, it isn't because of like slave stuff. It's literally because of capitalism. Because I know in my tool belt, right, like I think about the our Haitian brothers and sisters that like they organized to free themselves, and the other slave uprisings, right, that happened in this country because we were encouraged by our loved ones in Haiti, and how those slave uprisings, right, turned into the uprisings that we still hear and feel on the streets today, right? That we heard this summer, that we're feeling right now in the midst of loved ones, both high profile Black people who are murdered by police, and regular people who will never know about, who are killed by police, knowing that type of uprising and organizing and unity is happening. I mean, y'all, that's the Blackest thing ever. You know, so but I hope, you know, I hope for that person who you know, like first, like who that person who asked that question, like it is really hard when it's somebody in your organization or leading your organization, and they're deeply committed to being racist and gaslighting people who say that they're racist. And, you know, my friend, whoever you are, like I want to like empower you to think about, right, if that's an organization you want to be a part of or that you want to stay, because, you know, you could maybe look for another job and then write a really wild review as you leave. But if it is somewhere that you have to stay, definitely, you know, like Buki said, reach out to those of us on the panel, reach out in community, and sometimes, you know, you might need a listening ear to help you hold on in that employment situation if you don't feel like you have enough power to be able to fight against them. But just know that you're not by yourself, and they're that is a tool of the oppressor to gaslight and deny being a racist when they're doing racist stuff, because they are racist.
And there's one thing I did want to add. So if these trainings do happen, it is a myth that an organization can receive a diversity and inclusion or an anti-race and racism training in an 8-hour session. It's an absolute waste of your time and your money. So I highly encourage you never to sign up for that option. It is a commitment. So if any organization has identified racism or any kind of issues where a certain ethnic group is treated less than, it is a process and a commitment from the whole organization, especially for those who are in the skin of the oppressor, and especially for those who are convinced that their workplace is absolutely fine and they don't know what people are stressing over. It is a process. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about trainings. Sure, they have amazing cultural trainings that you can do for 9 hours, you can do for 15 hours. Oh my gosh, as a nurse, I've done a ton. And people just click, 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 forward, 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 pass, get the certificate and go, great, I'm done. And you ask them 5 minutes later, what did you learn? They can't tell you a thing. So just know it is a process and it's a commitment. And it starts off with acknowledging, even if people feel that they had nothing to do with it personally, just acknowledging. And this is why countries like, this is not a perfect example, but this is why countries like Germany would always have a step forward than the US, because the average citizen, though they were not part of the Nazi movement, when approached, they will acknowledge that, yes, this is part of my history and we are sorry. And like I believe Paige said, this is not reparations, but starting off with acknowledging that there is a problem is the beginning of the end of that problem.
I really love the way that you said all of that. I think you're just right on. You know, it's like something I read recently was saying we haven't had this massive national reconciliation like they had in South Africa, like they've had in Australia. And as you're discussing with, you know, the Nazi regime in Germany, we have no national recognition of enslavement and genocide and all of the whole shebang. And so, you know, I think people who are asking, yes, we need to watch our language, but it's so much bigger than that, because anti-racism is a verb. It's things that you do, and it has to become a daily practice. And I promise you, it won't happen in an organization that has white leadership, because white leadership can't lead people there. Sorry, you know, white leadership needs to be led there. And so that means that you have to transform your organizations. I know with our union, with CFA, we made this declaration that we were going to be anti-racist in 2015. We changed all of our bylaws. It changed who were leaders. It changed how much voice people had. It changed how much power people had. And then once people had say so, then we changed the kinds of things we did. I promise you, when we were a white-led organization, we were not working with Black Lives Matter and other progressive legislators to get laws passed for police to stop shooting projectiles at protesters, for police not to be hired if they have a history of, you know, engagement with hate groups. None of that would have been happening. You know, so when we have say so, then the things we care about will come about, right? And until then, they don't. But anti-racism, it has to be daily practice. We have a language that is on the agenda of all our meetings. And if we see anything going on that looks or smacks of white supremacy practices, we're supposed to stop the meeting right then and there, and we need to deal with it, you know? And white supremacy practices, we use that very broadly. I mean, really, if men are taking up space, we will call that a white supremacy practice, if you know what I mean. So we use it pretty broadly. But I really like the way that you answered that, Buki, because I think you just got at the heart of it.
I agree. And also, I think all of you kind of mentioned different ways for people can do. But I want to read a couple of questions asking for any ideas about what we can do. So one question is to Paige or anyone else, what are ways for people who are not on Instagram to engage and stay informed and involved? And the other question is, as a non-Black individual, what are some things I can do to be anti-racist? I know Buki mentioned the use of language. Is analyzing my language a good place to start? Paige, do you want to go first?
Sure. This question is actually a little challenging for me to answer because I do stay pretty informed just on local organizations through Instagram, through Facebook, also just through my community though. So if you're not personally on Instagram and your friends are, my friends and I started a group chat, and whenever there's an action popping up, we'll just send it in the group chat. So just kind of staying informed through other folks that you're close to. And then checking websites, but then that's really gonna just get you kind of the, the larger stuff happening as well. So that would be another thing I could suggest. Does anyone else have any input?
I love what Dr. Sharon said, like about like reading autobiographies and getting, I think, the arts and like looking at people's meaning systems. I know for me, I was very, I had a lot of internalized anti-Blackness and white supremacy around the international border. So not until, I was invited by a friend, because I'm, born and raised here on Stolen Kumeyaay land, colonizers renamed San Diego County. They teach us as like Black kids here to fear Mexico, to look down on it, that the air isn't clean there, all types of wild shit. When it's just like, oops, all types of wild stuff. Oh, now it's rated PG-13. There's a rated PG-13 thing now. But they teach us to hate our neighbors and to fear a fake border. So it took a friend, someone who cared about me, letting me be in community, eat with other Black folks there, hear their stories, and be honest with myself about the places in which anti-Blackness and white supremacy still live in me. So like that's really important. And I also want to lift up, right? One of my friends is inviting me to be more aware of my ableism as a neuro I think it's NT. I'm not sure, but I'm doing better, and I'll be even better next week when I learn more. But I'm really trying to learn more about the way my ableism is showing up in regards to autistic folks. So it's a lot of learning. I'm tripping up. I'm making a lot of assumptions. I'm putting my foot in my mouth a lot. My poor friend is just like, Christina, God, like, because I'm reading so much stuff, and I'm also trying to, I'm very much like, okay, I learned this thing, I want to enact it, but I have to take my own advice that I give to people who are trying to show up for me as a Black person, and it's their first time learning about anti-Blackness. So I have to be responsible in the way that my privilege and my ableism shows up and harms people who are autistic folks, and that's hard to swallow and deal with. But like, I got that privilege. So yeah, a lot of learning, and I'm also lucky enough that that I was invited to address my ableism with another group of folks who my friend, called all of us out about our ableism. So we're able to work together to get better about how we treat and honor our friend. So that's the thing too. There's a group of white folks in San Diego. They're called Showing Up for Racial Justice. And all they do is like anti-racist stuff together. So you can get together in that. be in community with other people who are working on that. So I
So
definitely
we
recommend
have
it.
this question, very interesting question. I think that can be related to what you have been talking about, the panelists. When you are not in the group with the different identities, people of different identities, you talked about how, yeah, you can learn from them by in a way consuming their cultures or being more familiar with their representations, readings, and learning. We have this question, would you guys consider it inappropriate for non-African American descendant to use dreadlocks? So I guess that this question is related to when we learn and consume and process the representations or literature or other contents of other groups. How do we have to process that? Is it okay for us to quote unquote appropriate, embody? Should we keep the, you know, like how, what is too much? What is too little? Any thoughts on that?
So I,
Cultural appropriation.
oh,
Sorry.
I'll let you go first, Doc.
It really is. I mean, people would like to think that they're just appreciating you when they take it on, but you know, it's like, you know, like look at what Christina was just sharing. I mean, we haven't even been socialized to love ourselves, to appreciate our cultures. How long do we go through school? Maybe through the whole thing before we have a Black teacher, before we read a Black novel by a Black author. You know, and so our celebration of our Black culture is necessary to our existence. It's necessary to our mental health. It's necessary to our spiritual health. And so when non-Black people are taking on Black culture, I mean, it's not like if you just go buy some kente cloth and put it on, although that's a part of it too. But it's like, I like the way this guy, I want to think his name was Danny Tate. He wrote a book that was called What White People Take from Black Culture, and it's everything but the burden.
Mm-hmm.
What white people take from Black culture,
Mm-hmm.
everything but the burden. I think that says it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to answer that question, do my best to be very brief, short with that answer. But one thing I bring with me is with my experience of living in different continents is actually what it means to actually have dreadlocks, because it means different things in different parts of the world. I'm from West Africa, particularly in Nigeria. There are children that are actually born with their head dreaded, as and these children are dedicated to the gods. They are acclaimed prophets, and they are acclaimed to have special powers. For example, in the Yoruba tribe, and they're called Dada, and the word is D-A-D-A. Now, to have dreadlocks where I'm from, it means that pretty much that person is dedicating their life to the gods and will serve the gods. And some people actually have their hair dread naturally, like me. So I'm in my 40s right now, and I finally accepted that. And I've been wearing dreadlocks now for 2 years. When you go to Jamaica, it's different. I've been schooled by my Jamaican friends that you have the Rastafarian, the tribe. They live up in the mountains. They have dreadlocks. They're like the naturalists. Like everything they do is clean. They spend their whole time praying. Then you have the fashion part of dreadlocks, where people go in a salon, use a crochet pin, and before you know what's happening, they have sister dreads. But for some people, just the way people value their tattoos, and that's a whole different topic about tattoos, because in Africa it means something totally different. Dreadlocks, for me, if somebody just wears dreadlocks, it should not be just worn as fashion. It comes with a huge, huge symbol. And it should not just be, like you said, just throwing on a kente cloth, because that doesn't mean anything. It's also another commitment, intentionally having dreadlocks, because it's not something, and the intention, we have to think about it. The hair starts in the roots of the head and it finishes wherever the dreads finish, no matter how long. And it's a commitment, same pretty much, just the way you can't wake up in the morning and comb your hair. It's a commitment that bond and that relationship is rooted and it is interwoven, not to be divided. And the only way it can be divided is if it's destroyed. So just think about that more. Sorry, I'm a little bit philosophical today.
Great. Thank you so much. Christina, there was this question about say his name. So I'm going to read the question. What do you think about the transition of say her name to say his name in reference to state-sanctioned violence against Black men?
I don't. Somebody was like, oh, say her name. Okay, say his name. Oh, say their name. I'm telling y'all, this summer, at all the protests, it was predominantly white people's cars, y'all, with like George Floyd, Mike Brown, say his name, say their names. Like, stop, just stop. Black men ain't tripping about say her name, because guess what? Black men have when people say Black Lives Matter, people can name the names of Black men who've been murdered by police. People still saying Emmett Till, for goodness sakes. Mm-hmm. People go all the way back for Black men. And like something I also like resent, like about some, like a question like that. I appreciate the question, but I also resent that like there is this like a over, like a people's, what is it called? People's fascination with division within the Black community. Like, yo, like our division look just like everybody else's division. But it's like it's placed under a microscope. It's picked apart, torn apart, dissected because we Black, you know? And it's just like, being Black, we are not monoliths, right? So I think when people say his name, I think they're like misinformed and it's a learning opportunity. And if they're like a Black person who's misinformed, like, of course, I'm gonna have a lot more grace and stuff and patience with them. But I think that it's a part of, yeah, it's just like, sometimes people are lazy with it. When I've seen people use say her name, then they start talking about say his name, say their name, I'd be like, this is your first. People use it wrong or use it incorrectly. It's super disrespectful, but I don't think that, I don't know. That's it for me.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it is important to think about why say her name was started. Then I think we may reconsider say his name. So our time is almost up. I want to ask the last question. It was addressed to Sharon, but anybody else want to chime in, please feel free to do so. Sharon, what does the word freedom mean to you, and do you believe that you are being limited to it?
I think Malcolm X was right that people are captive. If we're Black people in the United States, we are captive. We don't have freedom. At any point, our lives can be snatched. And there is nothing that can hold you safe from that as a Black person. because it can happen to any of us. It's certainly that the state is more focused on Black working class and poor people. And that's a fact. And on particular neighborhoods where we are, and that's a fact. But no, we don't have freedom. We don't have, one of the things I love when we start visioning and people are like, well, let me imagine, what is it like to be free? And I always go to music for that. And one of the most powerful songs to me is Nina Simone singing, I wish I knew what it feels to be free, right? I wish I could break all the chains over me. Or also recently I saw the film One Night in Miami. And at the end of that film, Sam Cooke is singing A Change Is Gonna Come. And I just think any Black person that listens to that is just going to be sobbing, because how much change we need before we could be free. It's very hard for us to know freedom, but I promise you this, the whole time that we were enslaved, not knowing freedom did not prevent us from longing for it and fighting for it and praying for it and all of that. So it's for all the groups of people of color, we have a certain word that expresses what it is that we want. And this is what Black people want. We want freedom.
So other panelists, any thoughts or last words?
After that last presentation,
Yeah, that.
So, yes, I think we can end it on that note. Thank you so much, all the panelists and also our attendees who stayed until the end. Thank you so much. I hope, of course, to have another events series, probably next semester, in fall semester. I hope that many of you can attend that event as well. Again, thank you so much. Black Lives Matter.